When I entered the field of aging well over 30 years ago, people looked at me like I was a little crazy. What makes you interested in aging? They'd ask. Of course, today, now that the demographic story is firmly in place, I'm quite popular at cocktail parties, or at least at the time when we went to cocktail parties, as people are looking for investment tips and knowing that I'm a coach for adults, midlife and better, they're looking for advice about helping them figure out what they want to do when they grow up, even though they secretly think they're telling me they're supposed to be grown-ups. But aging is not what gerontologists and futurists are focusing attention on right now. The field has been shifting to a concentration on longevity. It is not an overstatement to say that products, policies, and the services that address longevity will be amongst the most consequential issues of the 21st century. For starters, look at the global spending power of people over 60. The longevity industry will dwarf all others in both market size and in market capitalization. Consider the size of the current longevity economy, roughly $17 trillion and approaching $30 trillion in less than a decade. So how did we get here? Historically, and by this I mean for well over 100,000 years, we as a species didn't age, we died. Human beings didn't have the chance to age. They died prior to about 30 due to accidents like those darn saber-toothed tigers and poor sanitation. People generally lived long enough to leave a legacy of procreation, spreading their genetic material for the future. Only very recently did that change. It changed a couple hundred years ago, a blip on the historical landscape, and it changed as a result of scientific discoveries around the time of the Industrial Revolution that clean water and hygiene, in fact, were foundational to survival. In the early 20th century, it changed with the advent of antibiotics, and interestingly, pasteurization made a huge dent. As of the early 1900s, people survived long enough to actually age. So in 1900, life expectancy was 47. By 1935, when Social Security was created, it hovered close to 60. That's about the time our cultural narrative about what a normal life trajectory looked like got gelled into our psyches. As a result, our culture has been built upon this idea of a 3-chapter life. When you're young, you go to school and you learn. In the broad middle chapter of life, you have a family and earn. Then you retire, which means to withdraw. You take a trip, spend some time with your grandkids until the end. But that 3-chapter model is so baked into our subconscious that it's wreaking havoc because it doesn't reflect the reality of how we experience our lives today. The reality is that we're looking at children being born today, anticipating the potential of a century-long life. Simply put, AI is going to be a major driver of that century-long life. The Stanford Center on Longevity, of which I'm an advisor, is doing some very important work here. Look out for the center's new Map of Life initiative, which will, I believe, be a leading indicator of future trends in the aging AI space. So I want to offer 5 applications of AI that I think will be important investments over time. The first area I'll call out is related to health span. I mentioned earlier that gerontologists and futurists have shifted focus from aging to longevity. In fact, there's an even finer distinction in the space that's between longevity and health span, the part of a person's life spent robust and in good health. AI applications, including precision health, real-time assessment of aging biomarkers, and the coordination of things like microdose interventions will become increasingly important. 2, lifestyle applications that optimize a robust health span from the perspective of psychological wellness and other social and self-assessment factors. In fact, they've already begun emerging as a result of the social isolation experienced during COVID-19. Third, built environments. You're going to see a reimagining and reengineering of built environments that enhance health and productivity, and in fact, age integration over the course of longer lives. Fourth, climate change. Interestingly, this is an investment in longevity, helping communities adapt and protect the population from the increasingly severe effects of climate change will be an important role for AI. Finally, financial wellness. The course of a longer life will require AI applications to support it, financially and otherwise. Policies and products currently don't come near adequately addressing this. Over the course of century-long lives, and in place of the outdated but entrenched norms related to a life course consisting of 3 chapters, learn, earn, and retire, there will be a much more flexible journey. Those futurists, entrepreneurs, and the companies that understand the demands of a century-long life, of increased health span, are those who will be successful in meeting the needs of our increasingly long-lived society.